And welcome back to another week of the Adobe Firefly Discord Hangout. My name is Tim, and I'm once again joined by our good friend John. Hi, what's up?
Hey everybody. Yeah, thanks for coming on in. Happy Friday. Hopefully Hep will be here in a minute. I've got some cool stuff to show you. I'm just getting it ready. So Adobe has this thing where we start meetings at 5 after the hour, which I think is really smart because nobody's ever on time. You don't want to be the first one there. But now I'm
Talk to
conditioned to that.
yourself.
I'm like, oh shoot, it actually starts at 11. I should probably have my stuff together.
But while you do
Don't
that,
worry, we've got some.
I'm just going to say hi to a couple of people in the live chat, because if you haven't found the chat yet, in your Discord, in the very top right corner, there's a small icon where you can open the chat and say hi. I can see already a lot of people are in there. Hi, Annika, Henry, Gareth, Body, Mind, and Mood. Tim say, oh yeah, all right. I mean, in the meantime, since we had the last event, we also did a couple of streams in German. That was very fun. Finally, because the German audience, I've heard at least, hasn't seen too much Firefly yet. So, John, how's it German? Do you want to do a stream?
9.
Very good. I think that's all you need.
I will say, folks who've been around the Adobe world a long time might remember Go Live, if you really go far back. It's just a bunch of brilliant engineers in Hamburg, and they became part of Adobe in, I think, probably 99. Anyway, I mention it because for many years, I've worked with folks in that office, and then my wife was with Adobe for many years. And when our kids were little, they would be frustrated because one of us would always be on a call with the team in Germany, who are, of course, many hours ahead of California time. And I'm actually looking at our pictures of our kids when they were about 3 and 2, and they were wearing a little St. Pauli, football club shirts. Anyway, I remember the 3-year-old being kind of mad that mom and dad weren't around to making breakfast. And he said, "Daddo, is Mamo talking to Germans?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "No, 999." So now my level of German probably matches his. But the other kid now has like a 1,000-day streak on Duolingo teaching himself the language. So maybe he can come and he can be my presenter next week or for some future event.
Oh, I'd love that. That's amazing. Yes, and we do have some German-speaking people in the chat. Henrik, I know, has done some streams apparently. So it's all very cool. So
all right.
What are we doing? What are we talking about this week? What do you have? What do you want to talk about?
What are we talking about? Okay, well, I have a couple things to show folks, and then of course, always really great to make this interactive and hear what is on your mind, what you're excited about, and so forth. So let me start with a much requested feature that we've talked about a couple times, and what I'm about to show you is actually, I have to put out a lot of caveats because it's experimental, it's a work in progress, it's not yet approved by design leadership. So like by the time you see it next, it'll probably have changed. Actually, both things that I show you. But just to give you sort of more of a glass door kind of look at what we're doing and trying to be responsive to the things we hear from the community. Let me share my screen, and always exciting to see if I get this right. Okay, screens. All right, cool. Let's give that a shot. All right, cool. I think you guys are seeing my screen. Please holler if you're not.
Yes,
okay.
We are.
Yeah,
amazing.
Okay, so if you go to the Adobe support community, which I always encourage people to do, because Discord, for all its charms, doesn't make it super easy for us to persist things or to track stuff like votes for features. I know this is probably a little small, but try to make it a bit bigger. And that is where you can suggest feature improvements or new features, and then you can vote on ones that other people have already suggested. So as you'd see, the number one thing always is some notion of personal archive. So this could mean a few different things. It could mean just let me save favorites. It could mean capture history states so that as you're working, maybe you come back next week and you're like, oh, what was that? Like, I think steampunk golden doodle, or I totally forgot I made that. Like, let me take that in a new direction. So those would basically be the same thing. It's just what I would call a favorite is something that you intentionally like put a pin in. And a history state, of course, is just one of n. If it could be 20, it could be 50, but you just capture these and they kind of age out. But they're essentially the same thing, which is just a point in time. And so when people talk about a personal archive, I think that's largely what they have in mind. Of course, the question is, well, once you have such an archive, what do you want to do with it? And the first thing, of course, is, well, let me just use it myself. And then beyond that, of course, you could get into all kinds of cool things with sharing and community and remixing and like social feeds, and like the mind goes nuts. And Hep just materialized. So, hey, Hep, cool. Happy to pass the mic to you in a bit. But yeah, I just was telling folks that we're working on this #1 feature request. And so let me show you this extremely work in progress implementation. And if you have any thoughts, please holler. So you'll notice up here at the top, there's this new tab called Favorites. This wouldn't show up if you were logged out or you didn't yet have access. It really only makes sense, when you actually have generated things that you want to hang on to. And so in a module like text to image, you could go in, Sun loves owls. One self loves beanies, one loves owls. I'm going to go with owls. Okay. Put beanie on the owl. Maybe that would be my thing. Actually, let's try that. How about...
I think that's way too advanced.
And if I could...
That can't be done. It's impossible.
It can't be done. Oh no, we're gonna glitch the matrix if we try anything too controversial. And maybe because I misspelled it, it doesn't seem to be wanting to wear a beanie. Maybe I decide, well, you know what? You got to trust the wisdom of the machine. Don't force the issue. But let's just say I get to a place of something cool, right? And so after it thinks about it, you'll notice up here, I think you can see it, little heart icon, favorite. Yeah, kind of does what you'd hope it would do, which is marks it as a favorite, right? And then it's marked as such. And you could go to another one. You could say, well, that's actually pretty good too. And then maybe, I apply some photographic style and see if that's good. Really, any combination of variations should be captured. And so just with this simple affordance, you can mark stuff as favorites. Now, it's a little glitchy, as you can tell. Like, frankly, what probably should happen is these aren't marked as favorites because, I've now changed the parameter. So we'll work on that. That's why it's not shipping yet. But just wanted to give you a taste of what we're thinking about. So having marked them as favorites, if I go now back to the site, and of course, there's no direct link yet between the two things, but let's go back and we'll go into favorites. And, oh, sorry, I shouldn't. It's low-key profanity. Who cares? It's Friday. I was just trying to see what happens if I type a super long-ass piece of text. Does it still look good? And it looks kind of reasonable. So wanted to show that I've just been going in and making various things. And, these two that I just made on the fly did indeed get saved. If you were here, or you would be able to unfavorite. If you were in module, you could go back and you could remove them in that way. So again, it's really, really dirt simple. Now, one thing where it'd be valuable to get your feedback, and feel free to chime in the chat. Things get complicated when you get cloud storage involved. And of course, what you'd expect to work is that, yeah, if you save these on one computer, you log in a different one, everything is there. And of course, then there's all the saving or the sharing stuff. It just gets a little bit more technically involved when you'd have to deal with like quotas and all kinds of good stuff. Hep could tell you more about than I could. We'll work through all of that stuff. The proposal, though, or the thought is, in the short term, like literally, hopefully, a couple weeks, if we just store these in your browser on your computer, then anytime you log in, you would still have those items saved, but on your computer. So I don't know if there's a way to have a poll, but basically the two choices are either we can roll that out, hopefully very quickly, and if that's useful, we could do it, or B, we could wait and say delay it by some number of weeks, let's hypothetically say, in order to get all of the cloud syncing stuff working. So would you find this useful if you could just make your favorites in the near term on your machine, and then we do a fast follow subsequently, and then they're cloud synced and become shareable and all that good stuff? So I'll give folks a chance to chime in with any thoughts on that. But basically, I think we're making the case that it would still be really useful, even if they're just kind of for personal use, just on one machine. I think most people aren't probably creating from a ton of machines in parallel, bouncing back and forth. Certainly, we want to support that. But if we just want to start with something simple, maybe this would be a good way to do it.
Yes, I'm
So,
just
but
working
if you don't
on.
think that's true, please feel free to push back.
But if you can just react to this message, I'm just going to put the thumbs up and down in. Thumbs up if you want to do it now, and thumbs down if you want to wait and do it I mean, it seems biased. Thumbs down, and
Right.
it's
Properly.
neutral.
Yeah.
It's neutral. Yeah, it's just
Okay. Okay.
two emojis.
Okay. Right. And I don't want to. Yeah. I mean, if we agree, like properly, yes, there's like a whole ecosystem, which I'm dying to show you. I don't want to get into that just yet because it's a little bit premature. But yeah, we have all kinds of interesting ambitions around, being able to like, oh, Hep made this beautiful color harmony. And like, I want to take that and, she shares it and I could fork it from there. All the stuff we've talked about, all the stuff you'd imagine. We just want to figure out like, is there enough value that's worth getting out a first step before we do subsequent steps. Okay, so it sounds like pretty positive. That's really, really helpful. Thank you. We have a design review this afternoon, and that's actually a great signal that we can take to leadership. So rock on. Okay, cool. So I'm going to switch gears and I also see Tracy, Aaron, hi guys, others. If you want to chime in on this or if you have any questions, please do. Otherwise, I'll switch gears. We can also circle back. Can't believe I say things like circle back now. That sucks. But
We can take this
I am
offline.
a middle-aged technology guy. So, okay. So now I want to show you something Monty Python style, completely different. I actually hadn't seen this until yesterday. So what's really cool and fun, but also a little chaotic, is there are so many teams across Adobe trying interesting stuff that sometimes they pop out of the woodwork and you're like, oh, did you know about this guy in Bucharest who was just like playing around with the API? And it's like, I didn't, but I'm glad he is. Or like, tell me more. So the folks who have worked on the text effects capabilities have also been exploring like, well, what else could you do with that? And so they call it asset generation. I would actually just call it like, vector effects. Because really it's the same thing. It's just instead of the shape of a character, it's the shape of a shape, right? It should be an arbitrary shape. And so let me play this. I don't think there's any sound. And so the notion would be you would go ahead and click on this module on the right. Much like recolor vectors, you would get a bunch of presets you could play with. Potentially you could do things like search Adobe stock for free content, which would obviously, blow open tons of possibilities. And much like recolor vectors, you could just, drag your own thing in there. But again, the idea is really start with a very, very simple primitive and then apply some styling to it. So let me let that run. And, again, just like you've seen with text effects or with vectors, there'd be a bunch of styles. You could click on those, and then you're getting these various treatments. So these are all bitmapped, although in principle, there could be a world where, if vectorization technology gets really good, you could do things stylistically where it's appropriate, where you could turn, the vector into the bitmap into the vector, and that would all be behind the scenes, so you don't have to like see an intermediary, JPEG or whatever. But again, substantially, the idea here is like take a really simple input to condition the generation, and then make potentially interesting things from there. Obviously, here the UI is not built out. None of this is like guaranteed, planned. It's really just kind of like a first like thumb in the wind, like tell us if you guys like this. What would it need to be in order to be useful to you? Let me just let that play a bit more. And here's sort of like beautiful watercolor. Here's more of an oil painting. Here's more of a sketch. And then one of the common requests, of course, we get is, these are cool. You could use them on their own, but they're really powerful if they have transparency. So that it's actually like an isolated object. So you could imagine in some hypothetical world, again, this is contingent on if you think this is actually worth doing, you could have things in libraries and, maybe drag that onto your artboard. And then you could like invoke these effects. And presumably what you'd want most of the time is not just now a rectangular image, that's opaque, but you'd actually probably want the object with, the nice path preserved, much like you get with text when you have like a looseness setting. So like how far outside the bounds do we let the pixels go? But once you've set that, then you can save it. You can copy it to clipboard with transparency and so forth. So again, this is just a very hopefully logical incremental way to leverage what we were doing with text. I'll let it play again while I'm yammering. And I'm just going to take a glance over at, yep, a lot of yes.
I think
That's
people are
nice.
really looking forward to this one. This is
okay, awesome.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's why I really enjoy and value these conversations, just because they give us such. I mean, it's not the most scientific thing for sure, but it gives us a really good like first thumb in the wind signal And there's always the problem in big companies of like, they call it HIPPO, which is highest paid person's opinion. And not to say Adobe has that, but it's common to like just humans, how we all roll. And it's like, well, if we're just going to use opinions, we're going to use like the most senior person's opinion. And what they want from us and what we want is to make sure we replace all our own opinions with really what yours are. And the people who are putting this stuff to work are obviously the ones who matter most. So anyway, thank you for the quick feedback. That's really really handy.
Well, that's interesting. And there's a comment. It would be even more useful to do the inverse. So probably have a sketch, a photo, or whatever, and generate a vector based on that. Well, that sounds fun.
It would totally. And as folks have probably seen, if I go to just the Firefly site, one of the things we kind of touch on in the preview video, and we touch on, where is it? Text to vector. I was like, this is like least compelling. Well, whatever, who cares? But it's very simple. Anyway, being able to just generate vector art from a text prompt would be incredibly cool. I think what is my very arts and letters understanding of the mathematical processes that go on, it is still producing imagery, pixel imagery, which is then specially conditioned. It's trained on vector data sets, so it has like a certain appearance, and potentially also has like cues, and those cues could in turn feed the process of turning a bitmap into a vector. But at the end of the day, bitmap into vector is something that's been around for many decades. It's never generally as excellent as one might like. So that's obviously an area of very keen interest and investment. But the net is kind of what you're saying, which is, let me be able to just type in some prompt. Let me get out vector art, or let me just take any arbitrary image, regardless of whether it came from a prompt, and get a really good looking vector. So yeah, definitely areas of keen interest.
Great.
All right. And then while I'm just kind of up here vamping, which I'm happy to stop doing, I wanted to mention that in painting comes along. It's continuing to come along. We obviously want to make sure that the quality is super high, and it's always an interesting judgment call around when do we start putting things in people's hands. Obviously, you don't want to do it if it's like hit or miss, or if it's God forbid, produces something offensive. That's something we take super seriously. In fact, there's an ethics review today just about like all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes to actually do all of the testing and make sure that what we release we think is fair and ethical. But also, we don't want to withhold it so long that people can't give us good feedback, because obviously your feedback is what shapes our conception of, is it good enough to be useful at least a large proportion of the time. So work in progress. Or Tracy, anybody, I don't know if you guys want to show anything about it, demo anything. Happy to pass the mic if so. But yeah, that's a very active area of work.
Yeah, I have nothing to demo. I'm just mostly here to hang out with you all, answer questions, chat, etc.
Yeah, and there have been a lot of questions in the chat so far. So I'm doing my best to answer them while looking very interested and listening to what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I'm also trying to multitask, which is often, it's the chance to screw up more than one thing at once.
Are you doing that
let
right
me
now?
just say,
Also, a
multitasking?
video. Is that a video? I mean, the one you have on screen right now.
Oh, it's actually this is just me painting.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
just with one hand. Yeah. No, just since I mentioned colorful beanies earlier and didn't get one. Let's see if I fare any better here.
You want your colorful beanie.
There's a 15-year-old in the next room who's probably rocking a beanie while like rage quitting his Destiny or whatever he's playing.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I'll have to get his his verdict on these. I saw a guy rocking Louboutin shoes at Adobe. It's a visitor, so it was not a coworker, I think, but like spikes. And I didn't want to be weird and like take a picture, but I kind of wanted to be weird and take a picture, which I didn't do. But I did want to relay it to the kid because he's my footwear sensei now. So yeah, I just wanted to point out this is all, it's not shipping yet, but this is stuff we've previewed in the past, so I think it's cool to show it again. And so, again, work in progress on the interface, but you can define a region, you can add and remove, you can play with size, hardness, opacity. We're trying to find, what is the right level of control that also doesn't become like burdensome. And again, that's kind of a judgment call. But if I just want to try some more beanies, even using the mask I'd already defined, you can go ahead and do that. And it really just takes a couple seconds. Again, the magic of sort of in-painting stuff is the generation is conditioned on adjacent pixels. So that, to me, it looks pretty compelling, right? It's got a similar sort of line quality, color palette, maybe some lighting. And if you told me this is what the artist had made from the start, I would probably be inclined to believe you if you didn't call my attention to it. So again, kind of a...
I didn't even think about it. Just you had the
Yeah.
original style and it perfectly matched it. I was like, yeah, that's sure. Yeah, that looks right. But then just thinking about, oh yeah, of course, it had to understand the style and recreate that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Although I wonder, like, if I could have this in Photoshop, oh, that would be, oh boy. Can you do that, please, tomorrow?
Yeah,
Is tomorrow fine? I want my Photoshop is, can send you my Adobe.
Well, I will say, I mean, again, I never want to speak out of turn. At Adobe Max last October, they showed a bunch of notional integrations, where you could do things like take the crop tool, and expand a canvas, or like I was saying, potentially drag things in or do some painting. So certainly areas of keen interest. I will always, put it that way. But yeah, and again, knowing community-wise what is most important to folks is really, really helpful. So please, keep those cards and letters coming, as it were. Tracy and Aaron and other folks have been doing a lot of really helpful work, just kind of calling all the feedback that you put on Discord, distilling that into insights that we can then take to leadership. And then we can say, yeah, like it really is important to, launch favorites first because ... Or, again, just as you gave us feedback on a local only implementation, might be some hemming and hawing, like, yeah, I get it, but like, don't we really want to wait a couple extra weeks and do the full thing? And it's like, yeah, well, we could, but folks said actually this would be a nice starting place, and then we can just kind of ladder up to that. So that'll be really helpful feedback this afternoon.
And of course, now we have some questions. I'm not sure if you have the answer on those, like the one posted by We Have Fun. Will these tools be available for those who are already subscribed, or will they be charged extra or sending credits? Do we already know things about that, or is that still up for decision?
Yeah, we're still working on all of those plans. So stay tuned, and we should have some news further down the line on that.
Yep. Nothing to share, but yeah, totally keen area of conversation, and also bundled in, I think I've touched on this previously, but one of the important things we always hit on is that we want to credit and hopefully compensate the folks whose work has gone into making these models. I shouldn't even say hopefully. I mean, this is something we're attempting to do, and getting that right is non-trivial. But those things I kind of think are linked together. Like, how does the model get made? Who's actually responsible for it? It ends up being thousands of people, if not millions, at the end of the day. And then, what should be the commercial relationship as a result? So, super interesting topic. Glad that probably much smarter folks than I are driving it through. But yeah, help. And when the time is right, probably be great to get your feedback on the proposals we have in mind.
I wonder where people could submit such a feedback. It's just,
If only there was like a kind of group chat with categories. I don't know. That'd be really cool as a product.
I think we have answered this question a couple of times before, but I saw it a couple of times in this chat. Is Firefly using my images to... where did it go? Oh yeah, is Firefly using my images for your training models? I have so many photo quality images. So are we training on people's personal content?
We are training on Adobe stock. And so if you're a stock contributor, then yes. We are then training on content which is out. I'm trying to pick my words carefully because I know the lawyers are very opinionated on the subject. But essentially, we train on things for which there's already like an established licensing arrangement, right? It's either part of stock or it's public domain materials. I don't have all the details, Hat Brothers. But I think substantially, yeah, unless you fall in those buckets, I would say no. And by the way, just to interject, Hep is sharing some fun images in the chat of I believe it's your cat and kayak. And
Yeah.
these are the fruits of doing in-painting in the Firefly module. You can see there's a little watermark in the lower left in the water, as it would work appropriate. And yeah, do you want to say more about how you made these?
Yeah, so I brought it into inpainting. I used the replace background. It worked flawlessly. It cut out him and the whole kayak, so that was great. And then I just told it to set it in a sunny, stormy ocean because I had some sun dappled on the kayak, so I wanted to make sure that it matched the background. And then I just set a little pirate hat on top of him because, you know, he's a master of sailing the seas and quite the pirate.
Probably a pirate, yes, if I know cats. Yeah, that's super fun. And then, of course, as you saw with the illustration with the beanie example, you get multiple results, and you can just contextually cycle through those, which I think is really fun. And so you can get it to a good state, and then you're like, all right, cool, but now I just want to like get rid of that selection, select a different one, add the hat, or do what you like.
Yeah, and it was really fast. Usually, I mean, I'm a photographer by trade and I'm a creative imager, so I love to do photography with an intent towards like huge composites with other planets, etc. Usually I spend hours, on an image trying to dial it all in, and this was just really quick. We do want to bring things in like subject lighting and things like that because as you can see, the lighting sort of matches because I dialed the prompt in a little bit, but also it could be a little better. We could have kind of cooled the kayak and cooled the subject matter of that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the kind of thing where I think it's just going to always be iterative. Like we're going to keep improving the model, and we'll keep doing that based on the feedback you give us. I know, like as always, the time flies. I'm always afraid of like not having enough to talk about, and then I talk a lot. So, but just before we go, I wanted to show this is our colleague Brooke doing a demo. We had a great event 2 nights ago at Adobe San Francisco. I would have publicized it more, but by the time I knew about it, it was already standing room only. So there are fire codes which fortunately come into play. But much like I've shown in previous installments, we are working on this really cool 3D module. Even calling it 3D isn't quite the right thing because it's really just using 3D elements to make a scene and without you having to become a 3D expert. And so I just want to scrub through this. I won't, the audio is kind of horrible. And again, as is the visuals because I'm just like me with my iPhone. But there's Brooke and, has this little cylinder and is making a glass on a table. Literally like just that one element and a prompt is enough to make the scene. But where it gets kind of fun, and I'll just scrub through this interest of time. She placed some sort of preset that was, I think, theoretically supposed to be mashed potatoes. It came in kind of enormous. Makes it reasonably sized, goes and grabs a little cylinder, and then puts the cylinder on top of what had been mashed potatoes, but then says something about, mountains, lighthouse, yada, yada. And then give it a second. Sorry for the shaky camera work. And boom, there you go. Right. So literally just having like incredibly simple pieces of geometry is enough to compose a scene where you've got waves, you've got sky, you've got, a lighthouse with actual stripes because lighthouse. And, I'm really excited to get to a world where you can then start combining these capabilities. It's like, oh, that's cool. But like, now I want to put Hep's cat and the kayak in the foreground. Like, how would I do that? And, maybe I want to, select just the sky and I want to do some different treatment there. So, a million possibilities. We are working hard and fast to get them into your hands. So please stay tuned and thank you for all the feedback in the meantime.
Yes, thank you, first of all, for joining us, everyone at home, and of course, John and Hep. Thank you so much for sharing all the latest and greatest news and insights of Firefly. I have a couple of things to let everyone know at home because I saw there was a person saying, but I'm from the UK. Well, good news, we have Adobe live streams all week and even some during UK friendly hours in the morning/early afternoon. So do have an eye out on that. And of course, we also record all the streams and also this Hangout. So if you've missed anything, you're more than welcome to check that out on the Adobe Live YouTube channel. All right, that's it from me. Do you have anything you want to say before we end the event, John, Hep?
No, just happy weekend. Thanks. I never know obviously where people are, but thank you for coming if it was a weird hour. even if it wasn't a weird hour, thank you for your time. And yeah, like I say, keep the feedback coming, because it's all really, really good data points that we can use in shaping the product.
Absolutely. Keep those feature requests coming in. Go down to features and ideas, upvote things, and add your own.
Right on.
Amazing. Brilliant.
All right.
Thank you so much for
Thanks,
joining.
everybody.
I hope you're happy with the beanie you generated, and we'll see you very soon.
I'll go ask the boss, the actual teenager, in a minute. I'll let you know how it goes.
All right.
Thanks all.
Bye for now.
All right, bye.